right. Well, welcome everybody. First off, we're going to get into a little bit more of a advanced side of ProPresenter here, where we're looking specifically at the stage screen itself. So I've got a couple of different formats here that I've found, and I think that they work really well compared to just the generic layout format for the rear projection screen, confidence monitor, stage screen, whichever vernacular that you use in your setup. So these files I'll make available, but they're going to be in this compressed chords folder when it comes down. So the first thing you'll need to do is decompress it, extract it. But inside of this, you just simply have one called chords, and then this theme.dat and assets folder. The assets folder will appear empty. I assure you it's not. It's there specifically for ProPresenter to utilize to put assets and save your layouts. So what we're going to do is once we have that chords compression folder zip file extracted into this folder, we're going to right click and copy this folder. We're going to move into documents and we're going to select ProPresenter. We're going to go into themes and then we're going to paste that folder in here. As you can see here, I already have it showing, and it's the same theme.dat and assets as well. And then we're done on the file folder side for this specific project. So we can go ahead and close that. Now we're going to go ahead and bring our ProPresenter in, and a couple of things here. So as we're working on this, if you cannot see your stage screen live, you want to go ahead and change this to stage screen just while we're working through this process. But I highly recommend that you find a way or a capability, engineer something if you have to be able to see what your stage screen looks like live as you're making these edits, because your resolution is going to be different than mine, your spacing is going to be different than mine, and you need to be able to instantly have that feedback and then make changes and adjustments as you go. So this is kind of the generic background or stage screen or confidence monitor layout that ProPresenter typically comes with. It's the system clock and the current slide in white and the next slide in orange. And this holds true even if you're going into like scripture, right? So, a while back I thought, well, I need to make some changes to what this looks like for our church. So I went in and I made some changes. I added a stage message box. I added a video countdown timer and then a front screen preview as well. So that way, we had a little box there that people could see. But that's really all I did with it. But now we're ready to take it to the next level and really get a lot of, a lot more road out of what our stage screen can do. So now that we have those files and those folders moved over into our ProPresenter folder, we're going to hit this More button and go into Stage Editor. And you will not have these here, these three here that I have. This is what we're going to be working on today, is to get these established. You'll have this default current plus next text one, and it probably won't have some of the custom items. Format for yours may be slightly different than what you're seeing here. But what we're going to do is we're going to hit this plus symbol up here next to layouts, and you can see it has some predetermined layouts, but there's also some new options that you didn't have before you drug that over, and that is the multi-tracks, chords, and lyrics, and the presentation info and progress layouts. You're going to want the presentation info progress or the multi-tracks chords layout. If you have a multi-tracks subscription, you can link that integration in with ProPresenter and automatically have your chord charts shown on your stage screen along and in time with your lyrics. The last time I priced it out, it was about somewhere between $400 and $600 for an annual subscription for that. So your mileage may vary based on the size of your congregation, your budget, etc. So the one we're going to work with here is the presentation info plus progress. So as you can see, we've imported it. We want to make sure that our size matches what our stage screen is, what the resolution is, because if we don't, things can get a little bit hectic. So the first thing we're going to do is kind of take a look and see what this adds. So this adds groups on the left, our current playlist item on the bottom left. It moves our countdown timer for our segment into the middle, and then it puts our next playlist item on the right. It moves our system clock up to the top in the center, and now we also have a slide count for remaining and total slides. Total slides for the presentation here, remaining slides here. It's just a nice little feature. I don't think it's necessary, but it adds and it helps kind of fill in that dead space that would otherwise be there. So we can pretty much leave them alone. Now, let's start making our edits. And these are edits that I made for ours. You don't have to make these same edits if you don't want to, but these are the ones I recommend. First thing, we're going to click on this remaining slides text box here. And instead of having it smashed down against the bottom, I like to have mine centered. That's just me. Same thing with total slides, center that text line. And then I like to bold that out as well. That way, it just kind of pops a little bit more off of the rear screen. For the system clock, I do not like having the white fill behind it. I think that's atrocious. That's me personally. And we have always used red as our system clock color. So that's what I'm going to make that set that up as. Now, two, this is not totally centered with these as far as the timer is concerned, so you may have to make some adjustments there. But what I like to do is bring this down and just center it up. Use arrow keys if you want for a little bit more accuracy. I just kind of like to get it a little more centered there, and that works out great. Now there is one key thing that component that we're missing from this rear stage screen layout, and that is the stage message. So up here we have this command bar, and these are current slide items that we can add. These are next slide items that we can add. These are previews for other screens if we want to add those into our stage layout. Here's some timers we can add. Here's our playback markers, text box, general shapes, freeform, and then these three dots here that give us some additional information, some time codes, some groups, etc. What we would like to do is add the stage message in because, again, it's missing from this current layout, so it's going to populate here. And we always we have our stage messages go in green. So I picked this lime color. Where is it? This one. Yeah. Stage messages go in green because it's a contrasting color for the red. We do not like that it flashes. But we're also going to go to shape, fill, and we're going to fill that with black. And then for the text, we're going to make it bold again. And we want it to scale text down if need be. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and take the bold off of that. But we do want to make sure we check lines only and make sure that it's full width. And I can explain why in a second. So now what we're going to do is bring this down into size, and we are going to place this. You can put it wherever you want. I put it over the system clock because if I'm sending a stage message is more important than the system clock any day of the week. It's my personal feelings on it. If you disagree, you disagree. And then I would make that, large enough where the text covers the system clock preview completely. One thing you can do is make sure that the size, the 399 and 128 right here, just make sure that they're the same. Your position, all going to be pretty standard. All right. Well, now I can't see the system clock. Well, the stage message is only going to present when you send the stage message. So, I think you're going to be fine. We haven't had any issue with that yet, so just, it should be okay. We haven't had any issue with it. Only when stage message is showing will it be covering the system clock. When you hide the stage message, you won't have any issue. If you do have access right now to be able to look at your rear screen, down here in the right-hand corner is the show button. If you click that, it's going to instantly show this on your stage screen, and you can kind of get an idea of what the layout you're working on looks like with content in it. Moving on. This bugs me. I do not like this being a different size than this. So what I'd like to do is take this, 981 width. That's fine. That's our full width there. But the height of the 284 versus the 228, I want that to match. So I'm going to make this 284, and now our next slide text matches. Of course, that's going to cause a little bit of a problem down here. We're going to run over into some other content, and that's okay. The next label, you don't need. The countdown label, you don't need. And the current label, you don't need. I made those decisions for our team because, as soon as I tell you, you know what they are, right? So that just makes that simple. Now we're going to bring this down, obviously, underneath that. This one down underneath that. And then here for the segment countdown, bring that down there. Bring this guy back up over here. Bring him down just to match. And there you go. So we've got it laid out pretty well here. Just across, everything's pretty centered up. There we go. That's looking good. Looking better. I'll just tab that one time. So that looks good. Okay. So now we have our current slide text shape that matches our next slide text shape. Now the groups over here on the left are very, very useful, especially in live presentation with music. So, we're going to go ahead and just rescale these to match what our slide sections are. So, stretch these. Match. There you have it. So, let's go back to our original. So here we go. We've got Death was arrested, and this is originally what we were working with. Now let's go ahead and let's right-click. Let's remove our action for stage. Now we're going to right-click, and we're going to add action, stage, and we're going to pick presentation info. In this specific application, it's going to be Progress 2 because these are my other layouts that I've been working with. So we're going to hit Progress 2. That's the one we're currently working in. And then we're going to refire it. And you can see what we've changed to over here. Now, these don't have information in them, these two squares, because we're currently working in a library, not in a playlist. However, if we were working in a playlist, you would have that information current and after that are showing as well. So there you go. And then for your stage message, you can see it covers your system clock perfectly, and then when you hide it, your system clock comes right back up. So kind of easy to stack that in there. All right, so now we have an idea of what we're doing there. Let's go back to our stage editor because now we're going to add a couple other elements that are going to help us along the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a current slide element, and we're going to select notes. And notes is going to come in. We want this to be the same size as our current slide text box. So the shape for our current slide text box is 981 by 284. So 981 by 284. And then the positioning is 43, 131. So 43, 131. And now we're perfectly overlapped with that current slide text and current slide notes. What we're going to do now is move from the shape to the text. And we need to left align our text and top align. So upper left, this is how it needs to look. And then we're going to pick a different color that's not white. This magenta works for our team. You can make it whatever you would like it to be. It's not a problem. That these are overlapped, it's not an issue. I'll explain why in a second. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a next slide element. So it's going to be the next slide notes element. We're going to bring it in. We're going to check our next slide text shape, 981 by 284. So now it's the same size. Now we're going to get our positions, 43 by 416. So 43, 416. Now we're perfectly overlaid. Now let's go fix our text. We're in top left. And then for this, we'll use red. Again, you can use whatever color is going to work for your team and whatever size is going to work for your team. Your mileage is going to vary on this. Just letting you know, it is going to vary. Because not everyone's eyes are equal, and you're going to have to make changes for the whole group, that are relevant for that. So be prepared for that. Just look for it. It will happen, I promise. So now when we go back and we relaunch this, the same thing. There's nothing here, right? Let's go back up. Let's go to death instead. Look there. Now, when it comes to adding chords to the stage screen, we're going to utilize a method that we just added with these current slide notes and next slide notes. We're going to use the slide notes section of our presentation to add those chords. So right here in our presentation for Death Was Arrested, we're going to hit edit. And then on this first slide, I'm going to use some just generic notes. We're going to say we're doing it in key of D, and there's a D and there's an E minor 7 on this first slide. Okay, so right now we don't have access to the slide notes, but there's a button right here that says slide notes. We're going to open that up, and then it'll give us this section down here to type in. So you do not have to put it in parentheses, but I do for our team just to add a little bit of extra visibility on the screen, make it stand out a little bit longer, a little bit further. So we're going to bring D over, we're going to bring E minor 7 over, line those up kind of near similar, and we'll hit the show button down here, and this is where it's so critical to be able to see your stage display as you are making these edits and adding these, because you'll be able to see if they line up over the wording, where they line up over the wording with the chord chart, and that's what we're trying to mimic. We're getting these chords off of our chord chart, and we're adding them to our stage presentation screen. That way our lyricist and our instrumentalist can see where they land, and this will cut down significantly on the amount of chord charts that you have to print, the space that you have in your music library, and it'll also add a lot of flexibility to your services, specifically if pastor says that he wants a this song, that song. It's something maybe you as a worship leader haven't prepared for. You can pivot, and you don't have to worry about not having those chord charts ready to go for your team. They can just follow along with the stage screen, and it should be there. So now, if we're going to come back over, let's relaunch this, and now you can see that that D and that E minor 7 are loaded in here as well. We need to move those over a couple of spaces, so we'll go in, add a couple spaces here, add a couple spaces here, put one more there. Now we'll go back over, we'll relaunch that. See, now they've moved over slightly, so they're more in line with the wording for where those chords would actually land with the chord chart. And that's how you do it. Now, as you move forward, they're going to change color, they're going to move up, they're going to stay right with and in alignment with those chords and those lyrics as they need to. For this to work correctly, you cannot have any slides that have 3 lines of text, because that is going to affect how the chords are stacked in for the current and next. And you want that to be a universal setting, because if you make changes for one slide, you're actually changing that one slide spacing for the entire group of that next or current slide text notes. So you want to make sure that this is always those 2 lines only, very much like this. Well, how do I make it that? Well, you can, my shame was a ransom he faithfully bore. That this is 2 lines, but he canceled my debt and he called me his friend is just overrunning just a little bit. So one of the things we can do, going into the stage editor, so we can pick this, and our current scaling here is text down. It's fine. Leave it. Bring that back over. Let's do one more. I think that's right. Let's make sure. 43 by 131. Whoa, we're way out. 43. 131. All right, they're perfectly overlined again. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to split this in some way. He canceled my debt, and he called me his friend. So let's go to edit, reflow. He canceled my debt, he called me his friend. Let's find it. There's 3, there it is. He canceled my debt. Well, maybe we'll say that the and is implied. There you go. He canceled my debt, and he called me his friend. And that may just be a reteach that we do with the worship team. Hey, there's an and here that's implied, and we don't really have to have lyrics up for it. That way you can trim that down. You find whatever works for your team, whatever works for your application, use that and go forward with it. But this, in a nutshell, is how you can start really getting a lot more out of your rear stage screen. If we come into sermon here for last week, you can see, this is going to show that the group is actually the entire passage that he has, and he can see the 5 and the 4 and so on and so forth as it's going through there. So he knows when we hit here, well, not on that. Let's remove that stage action. Let's change that up. Add action stage. Current progress 2. And now we relaunch. So he can see that right now we're just sitting on a blank, and we're going to be moving So he knows that coming up he has 5 verses of text that he has to read. And right now we're on Sermon 3925. After this, there is nothing else. It'll be invitation, which we don't have programmed in yet. So he knows as we move forward by that. He's counting down. He can also see how many slides are left in his sermon and how many total left he has here. Right here. These are all copy and pasted. That's why it switched back. So I would have to change the formatting for that. But our pastor this week was not ready to move into the new format. He will be ready this week. So that's why we had it on the previous current plus next format. So, all right. Hopefully that helps. Give it a try. Give it a look-see. Remember, it's more stage editor and edit to your heart's content. Really great option for a lot of people. There's one here that I have that I made as well. Just very much off the same thing. I went in and I deleted the all of this and all of this center section here. And what I did was I added a screen preview for the mains. And this is helpful for when you're showing video on the front screen, but you still need the content and context for the rear projector or stage projector. But the main screen itself is showing a video. You can see what's on the main screen while looking out at the stage screen, and this is helpful for your presenters to utilize. So I would recommend making that. I have it listed here as presentation info and announcements, and this prevents that awkward, turn around, look up at the screen type activity. So give it a look, try it out. Let me know what you think, and if you have any questions, reach out. I'll help any way I can. All right. God bless.